Don't whisper because you're going to see it. All right, you know what? I think it's fine.
We're going to make it work.
Welcome back to another episode of the Murph Martyrs Show.
Bang.
In this next song, you must march around the room. Here we go.
I know what the f I'm doing. Just sit down in the chair.
That's better. Well, we're back. We've had a big couple of weeks. We said that a couple of weeks ago, but it's been big again.
Big again. As you can see.
Topic 6, fatigue. Topic 5, cardiorespiratory system in the heart. And insulin-like growth factor acute responses.
Doing my learnings.
Murph is doing his learnings.
Doing my learnings.
For the university.
University learnings.
The university learnings.
I'm big boy.
Big boy Murph.
So, you have a topic to talk about today.
Yeah, boy.
And I don't know what it is.
No, boy.
So, we're going to find out together.
Right now. I got a story to tell.
Oh, okay.
No, that's the name of the Biggie documentary.
Ah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, Biggie released an album.
If I put on some Biggie music now while we're talking about this, is that copyright?
Yeah.
Kind of is, damn.
Just in your head, if you listen to this or watch it, just imagine like...
Juicy.
Okay, the song. If you don't know what the song is, it kind of comes across weird. Now, this is where my thought process went, alright? Got a story to tell. I thought that works for the podcast. And then I'm going to lead into Biggie's album, Life After Death. Oh. And then I'm going to go and talk about death. Today. That's where I want to go. I want to go there. Now, okay, bear with me. You see I'm laughing? It's because I'm nervous. No, I'm kidding. Yesterday, I was with Sean in the gym, and we were talking, and I asked you a question about donating organs.
Yes.
Right? Now, it's not going to be talking about donating organs. What I was thinking to bring into here is why do you do what you do? Mm-hmm. On a greater sense, not just your training side of things. Because, reverse a little bit more, context being, in the last couple months in particular, the shortness of life and the, what would you call it, the fragility of life has come about in many different ways for me personally.
Oh, okay.
Right? And a couple months ago, probably about 6 weeks ago now, I had to talk to my dad about end of life plans with my grandpa. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I said to him, have you discussed with Grandpa? Grandpa's like 93 years old.
Shit.
Right? He's an old man. Right? He's not as old as he could be, but he's an old man. And I said,
not as old as he could be.
He could be like 110. He could be 105. You know, he's a young man.
I was like, potentially in the future, not...
Not now.
I was going to say, how do you change your age?
He is exactly as old as he is. Okay. Anyway, so I brought up the topic of end of life plans with Dad to approach his father with. Because in the last, year or so, he's kind of declined pretty quickly in his abilities and whatnot. He had a hip surgery and then he's constantly in and out of hospital, this kind of stuff. And I said, Dad, there's yourself and family, like brothers and sisters and whatnot, that needs to sort out what's happening with Grandpa when these things happen. Mm-hmm. And it's not like, oh, this might happen. Like, this is going to happen. At some point in the future, Grandpa's going to pass away. You have shit to deal with.
Correct.
Right? And so, for me, when we were in the gym yesterday, we were talking to Sean about, she's a ICU nurse. And I've got a few ICU nurses that I train, and she was talking about when people come into hospital for their, what they call it, aftercare directives or plans and whatnot. So you have to have, people know about a will, but this is also like if you get seriously injured and are unable to direct people with the kind of health and help you want, and you're injured, you have to have a plan, aftercare directive or whatever it is. And so we're talking about that, and I was starting to think, I was like, this is shit that isn't really discussed enough, I think.
Not much, no.
Not much, because it is and can be an uncomfortable topic.
Correct.
Now, I don't know if it's uncomfortable for you, so I thought I'm going to throw it at you in the public eye.
Sure. just to watch my face either smile or...
It's like, I don't know where this is going to go, but we're going to take it there.
Okay.
And so I was thinking these are things that what I'm going to be looking at doing now after talking with Sean yesterday is looking at things like, okay, sorting out my will, easy done, right? Go do that. But also sorting out things like, okay, if you are in a serious incident and you're unable to direct people how you want to be cared for, that directive, get that. So then when you go to hospital, the hospital can be like, cool, where's the directive? It's the GP's got it, or your next of kin's got it, or whoever you're putting in charge of your health and welfare. Once this happens, has it, they can say, Josh wanted to be tubed for this long, and then if he didn't come back, or if there's no hope of coming back to a semi-normal life, what's the process from that? And I think for me it's really interesting because we've got that on one spectrum, and then my sister's had a baby last year, so another spectrum. So I'm seeing like beginning of life stuff and then end of life stuff.
Yeah.
And there's me in the middle.
Yep.
Right? Hopefully more towards the baby side than so, but you know what? Life is, right?
Yep.
And so I started thinking about this, and I was like, these are things that I think need to be brought about more. And I was like, how can I bring this into the discussion that we have? And knowing that we do want to go a little bit more general to people as well, not always sports science, not always talking about training and developments and whatnot.
Bring in some real life.
Bring in some real life, some real death, right?
Hopefully not for a while.
Hoping on for a while. Discussion on that,
Okay.
right? Have you thought about the things that you do, why you do them, and why you do what you do, knowing that sometime in the future you'll be dead, and there's going to be a portion of Murph's history that's been around.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want that to look like? What do you want that to be? And then what do you do in the meantime, like now, what you're doing now while you're living, to ensure that is the best it can be?
Yeah, it's a good question because it's something I do think about regularly, but I don't have a solid answer for it. I've obviously done a lot of study. Simon Sinek talks about this sort of stuff a lot. What is your why? He's one that comes to my head right now, but there's lots of coaches, people in general that talk about, especially business people, talk about what's your why, why do you do what you do, what's your legacy, what's your big aims, all that sort of stuff. And I can't ever seem to put it in words just yet, because I think I'm still trying to find exactly where I fit into things. Obviously I found a direction, but I don't know what the end of that direction is. Mm-hmm. Make sense?
Yeah.
So obviously it is involved, like career-wise, it's involved in the strength conditioning world, it's involved in sport somehow, it's involved in making some sort of change. What exactly, to the point, is that change? Not too sure yet.
And what about in life in general?
Life in general.
Outside of like your professional life, personal.
Don't really know.
What do you envisage your legacy being? What do you envisage your...
Good person, down to earth, likes a bit of banter.
Yep.
Hard worker. What I do like to be known for is someone who you can rely on that's going to do what they say they're going to do. Likes to push boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
likes to not be held back by boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
Fights the norm, that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing I want to be. Like people say, Adam never followed the rules.
Mm-hmm.
He did what he wanted to do based on what he enjoyed doing the most.
Can you talk about how you don't follow the rules, how your mind thinks, and what you do on a daily basis that is congruent with those ideas that you just expressed?
Well, I guess first of all is I'm a strength coach.
Sure.
So people are like, my nonna, so you talk about your grandpa, my nonna, he still thinks I don't have a proper job.
Yep.
To this day, well, when are you going to get a real job? And it's purely because I don't work the normal hours.
Yes.
My two best mates,
Yep.
loving a bit, still think I don't have a proper job.
Mm-hmm. When
are you going to work normal hours? And that's the typical, 9 to 5, wake up in the morning, go to work for 8 hours, come home, finish your work, do whatever you got to do. Fuck that. No. And there's one big shift of the norm that I've taken. Geez, I've never had a proper job.
Yeah.
Before this, I was a baker.
Yep.
I don't know if I've ever said that.
You know
Before
what?
this,
Yeah, but
I was a baker. Worked for my dad's business, and so those hours are all early mornings.
Mm-hmm.
I have all day free to do whatever I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
plus some sleep. Now I have afternoons generally free. Some mornings, maybe more than
some.
than you do. So there's one big thing. Obviously, what's helped me to do that is the hard work building up to this point, which has got me to a point where I can charge the amount of money that I do to be able to go, you know what, I'm not going to do 60 hours a week just clients. And I think that's where I was. I was doing 60. I think the biggest week I've had is 75 sessions. And I think at that point...
Is that 75 hours though? Or half
sessions,
hours? Yep.
Sessions. At that point, everything just gets, not filtered, diluted.
Yep.
You get diluted amongst the 75. Whereas now I'm doing 20, 22 sessions a week. Concentrated
You're
mode.
doing 22 sessions a week?
Yeah, man.
Big boy!
See? I don't work. You're now concentrated mode.
Yep.
So there's go back to what we're talking about. There's one big shift of the norm that I like to do in my career sort of things. Obviously the personal life, I've spoken about it before, making sure that my life situations are congruent or match what I want to do with my career. So career for me is still a big value, progression in my career. Obviously I do want to move at some point, so making sure that everything else around that is suitable for that.
Flexible?
Yep, flexible for that. I've started studying at, when I start, 33.
Yep.
I started like formal university study. I'm 35 and I'm just starting my master's degree. There's another bit of a shift of the norm. I think that all those sort of things, that's what I want to be known for, is Adam didn't follow rules.
Yeah.
Rules.
Yeah.
Adam, broke the norm to do what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
Some people do think it's selfish. Fuck them, I don't care.
Fuck you, I'm selfish.
And I think you need to be there needs to be an element of selfishness in every person. Otherwise, you just tend to follow someone else. And then at that point, you become resentful of the person.
Like everybody else.
And you become a sheep.
You become a sheep.
Fuck sheep, I'm a wolf.
Rah!
Right.
Love it.
Yeah.
The show's ended. On that note. Fuck sheep, I'm a wolf. Brah!
What about yourself?
I love it, right? And I also think about this stuff a lot.
Yeah.
I think about
Do
death.
you have a final...
I have no final
On
end
your
goal.
tombstone, what does it say?
Josh was.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Perpetually everywhere.
Perpetually everywhere.
That could be my tombstone.
It's your tombstone.
Perpetually everywhere.
Inside joke, don't worry about it. So it would basically be, Josh was. No, it's interesting because you talk about, the normal job and society conventions, this kind of shit. They think that this is the way to go. Now,
I just get bored of the norm.
Yep.
The norm bores me. So I want to just, if that's what this is,
yep,
I want to be out of that and be this.
yep,
Or if that's what this is the norm, I want to be everything else around the norm.
yeah. There's elements that would fit into the norm. But for me, I think about it a lot, right? And I try and engineer my entire life around maximum flexibility. So my life word is freedom, right? And my death word is legacy, right? So I have a life word and I have a death word, right? Yeah. So I want to have freedom in life to be able to leave a legacy post-life, all right? One of the biggest things that I think about is the idea that you're around, not alive, but you're around until the last person speaks your name. Right? So right now, you're talking to Josh, whatever, right? I could die tomorrow. You still might talk about me 6 months, hopefully more than 6 months, but 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever. But sometime in the future, my name, whether it's, Josh, whether it's Matthias, or whatever that Matitsi, whatever you fucking want to call it, whatever that idea of that sentient being is going to fade out. There's no more of that name mentioned, right? And most people, that happens when you've got kids and grandkids. Like, I couldn't tell you my great-grandfather's name, right? Or your great-great-grandfather's name, or your great-great-great-grandmother's name, or, onwards. There's a time in the future where the names don't exist anymore, right? But it's what you do that will perpetuate throughout time. Or throughout the continuation of events, however you describe time and whatnot. And so it's interesting to talk about society conventions and you talk about the norm and whatnot, because it's the two things I've thought about recently. I was at a wedding on the weekend, right? One of my best mates from high school. And best mates in high school. After high school, we kind of drifted apart. He contacted me and was like, hey man, come to my wedding. I was surprised that he contacted me, but I was like, yeah, sure, it'd be a good time to catch up with everyone. And I got to the wedding, and there was like my sort of like group of mates that were there. We all rocked up late, like individually, but we rocked up late.
Was it the same back at school?
Yeah, pretty much. And so a mate was getting married. He was on the, like, at the altar, not on the church, but at the, whatever you call it, the ceremonial thing, holding the wife's hands, and they were saying the ceremony was happening, and I pulled up, and I was like, I want to sneak in the back, because they were facing that way, so I snuck in the back, and at the back were my mates, and I was like, fuck, and I was like, what's up guys, how you doing, whatever, I jumped to them. And then one of my mate's partners was like, we rocked up like literally 2 minutes ago when the bridal party was walking down the aisle. And I said, well, at least I snuck in the back. But anyway, but the conversation there was I found very high school still. As in like talking about shit that happened in high school. Hadn't really progressed much from that.
Yeah.
Nothing had really evolved too much. It was one of the guys said to me, oh man, when are you having kids? And I was like, bro, I got a gym. I didn't want to go. Right,
Didn't go too deep.
I didn't want to go too deep. I was like, I got a gym because you can have a gym and have a kid. And in my head, I was like, why is that the question that's coming up? Why is that the question?
That's almost like the standard of this point is, have you got kids or not?
Yeah.
If you don't, you're here. If you do, you're here.
Yeah.
And what's the next? Sort of thing.
And for me, I was like, maybe if you ask me like, what am I doing? What is my vision? Not this is a wedding conversation, but like, there's a bit.
It could be.
It could be.
It's not normal.
It's not normal.
But it could be.
Yeah. And so to have that discussion, I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, this mate of mine, obviously, I hadn't seen him for 5 years as well, doesn't really either understand or know, or see the opportunities that I want to move into, what I want to do with my life, right? And so it was kind of interesting, just like, people watching and listening to the constructs, you know what I mean? And why don't you have a proper job and this and that? This is what, okay, no one knows that because that's what he was in. My grandpa would be the same. We have a proper job. You finish work at 10 a.m.
I used to work 16 hours a day and ride my bike home and like, that sounds horrible.
That sounds like a terrible life. Shit. But it's that idea of that's the way life has to be.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm like, well, I want freedom through what I'm doing, and one of the articles that I don't think I've posted before, I might have posted once on Facebook, it was sent to me by one of my old housemates. And she was like, you would love this, read it. It's called, the article's called Living Life by Default. Right? And it starts with a story of a guy, let's call him Trevor. Trevor lives a comfortable life. Trevor works for a financial company that he got the role through his wife's father, who a job became available and he had some skills and they needed someone. So Trevor did this, Trevor lives like this, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, vomit, right? So I resonated with that because I was like, anti-resonated with that because I was like, living life by default seems to me to be the norm.
Yeah, definitely.
And for me, I'm like, all right, cool. Well, what do I do in my life that isn't that way? And how does that help me then move through what I want to do and connect with who I want to connect with and experience the world how I want to experience the world? I used to go to Bali quite often, right? And I would go there, I would speak no English, I'd only speak Indonesian, I would disconnect completely from Western culture for 5 to 7 days at a time. People are like, how are you going there by yourself? What are you doing? I'm like, just being with myself.
Yep.
And so this, the wedding came up, and then last year we had like the new entrance to the family, and then my grandpa stuff, and that's when I started thinking like, fuck man, like it all of a sudden it'll come and smack in the face like, oh shit, I'm gonna die one day, right? How am I living currently?
I'm listening to the audio book Cosmos.
Yes.
And just I've heard it before, but again, I like being reminded of how insignificant we are, how small our life is in comparison to the rest of the entire universe. What's bigger, galaxy or universe?
Say whatever you want, man.
Then galaxies are in universe. Anyway, how small we are in comparison, and how it sort of makes you realize how important this little speck of existence can be. And I guess it comes back down all the way down to what you're saying right now is, what do you want to be known for? How do you want to live your life? Is it what you're currently doing now? Some people don't have, I guess, the ability or opportunity to change it a heap. you can always make some changes to make life better, to make it like exactly what you want in life. Maybe it's a little bit too late for some. That's just the way it is. Others might just not be in that position. That's just the way it is. But are you doing enough to then take advantage of that insignificant speck of existence you're in to make it count? Because, I mean, fuck, we don't know if we've got another chance. We might. We don't know. We don't know. So, you know, are you doing enough? And that's sort of, I guess that could be a bit of a driver for me. When I listen to those things again, and when I get reminded of those things, I'm like, shit, yeah, okay, that is why I do this sort of stuff. That is why I have a job that I love. That is why I do my studies, and that is why I ride my bike and all that sort of stuff. Because I don't want to, I don't know who said this, it might have been Les Brown. You ever heard of him?
I have heard of him.
Motivational speaker.
Yep.
Great storyteller, fantastic. He said, I'm pretty sure it's him, you shouldn't go into the ground perfect.
Bang.
You're not meant to go into the ground, all your joints perfectly intact, no scars. You know, you're meant to go on the ground fucked.
Yep.
You know, everything's worn away. You pretty much, your body is finished, and then you go to the ground. That's what I want to do. That's why I do the risky things I do, and I play around and I play sports still, even though my knees are fucked. And I go to the gym and I keep wearing everything out, because by the time I'm in the ground, I'll be like, yeah, no, he's done. He's cooked, putting away.
Yep.
That's what I want.
I think about why, when I go back to the question.
Hopefully that's a long way down the track, but that's how I'm going to go to the ground.
You know what I've actually thought about? I was going to go somewhere just then, but you know what I've actually thought about? And I don't know if you've thought about this, and I think it would be very challenging on a personal level, right? It will take you deeper into yourself than you've done before, but I have I've thought about doing a video, right, that I then store and only to be released on my death, right? And being like, you know, a message to a loved one.
Now.
Like, I've thought about doing it now.
Yeah,
you
right.
know, and then maybe doing it every year, right? So if I did one in January, I haven't done one as well, by the way, so there's nothing out there at the moment that I know of, okay? I know.
You was drunk one night and you know what?
What's up? Right? But I've thought of doing one, and almost like a message to my loved ones upon my passing, right? And what I think of that is like, okay, well, what would the message be? But then what am I doing now that is congruent to that message?
They can see that message evolve over the 30, 50 years.
Ideally, it'd be like delete 1 year and then you do the next year, and then and then you do the next year. You know, a message
just
to my.
leave them all.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The evolution of Mai Tais over 50 years.
Every year, and what that would do is that every year you would then see the evolution, but then you would see how you were growing, but then you could see those, if you want to imagine trying to watch like 25 years of like, this is my final notice. It's a bit fucking morbid, right? When you think about it,
Yeah,
you know. But for me, it's like that whole, okay, cool. It's acknowledging my fragility as a person. It's acknowledging that I'm only here for a short time, and it's also then acknowledging those who matter to me and care for me, and
that
who
can
I
always
care
change
for.
over time too.
Absolutely. Acknowledging those who make a difference, and I try and do that as much as I can. You know, every Friday I post my little Friday story. Every Friday I say call your mum.
Yep.
On there, and it's kind of my little fun way of helping that, like providing that insight into the world. You know, is that quite often we do get caught in our own lives of, you know, I'm at the gym 13 hours a day, or you know, and I don't have time, or don't make the time, or don't think about messaging mum and say, hey mum, what's up, thinking of you. She loves that, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Or my sister, or my friends or family, whatever. And you know, it's that kind of thought process when I say about why do you do what you do. I mean, why you do what you do on the daily and taking stock of what you're doing. You know, for me, I like to have active time. I have active time, and my dead time is still my active time. You know, so in my house, don't have a TV. You know, I try and get out, and like the other night, for example, I went out to get some food from Foodland. I was, you know what I'm gonna do? Go down to the beach and just be in the air of the ocean.
Be in the air of the ocean.
Like, I want to be.
That's a strange way to put
It's
that.
me,
But I got
It's
it.
who I am, right? I got off my motorbike, took my helmet off, and I just kind of walked out onto the grass, and I stood there and let the breeze wash upon me, okay? And then I was like, you know what? To deep within, I'm at peace with the world. And then I left, and I went home, and I had my food and some seltzers, but that's another story. But it's like, for me, it's like taking stock of where you're at. And I think what I wanted to go with today is that we've been doing a whole lot of stuff on, female athlete development and female coach development and issues people find in their lives and what's happening. We're talking very niche and very specific to, a certain genre of people and a certain profession. And when we're trying to expand it out, but we're speaking to those people. But I'm like, all right, cool. Well, let's take a step back and recognize as individual specks in the world, and as individual specks within the galaxy, within the universe, that we do and we can get caught up in our own shit.
Yeah.
And I think it's like that whole, this is going to happen. People are going to pass on. Your loved ones are going to pass on. You're going to pass on. What are you doing on the daily to ensure that you live congruent to yourself and comfortable to yourself? That was my thing to have. You said, what's your question? Like, fucking,
that's a long way away from Biggie, but I like where it went.
You know why I went Biggie? I went Biggie, life after death.
Yeah, fair.
I got a story to tell, and I knew you'd ask me what it was. So yeah, that's what I'm at.
You got me in the first line.
I got you in the first line, and then we wrap up a story with Go Listen to Juicy.
Go listen to Juicy.
And Hypnotize. Back.